What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Vanguard Zone. My name is Sam. I'm joined, of course, by Gianluca. How you doing today?
And okay, baby!
We're here to review Brandt Gate from Set 2. Both decks in Brandt Gate got a lot of sweet upgrades, and I'm excited to talk about them. Orphis and Prison players, rejoice. This is your set.
They definitely were two of the decks who were looking for some support the most to really put them over the top. And I think both decks got what they were looking for. Prison needed more ways to imprison, specifically outside of your opponent's board. And Orphis needed literally anything. You know, we were thinking specifically a finisher, crit pressure, but instead, they got some spicy stuff that's going to be exciting to talk about.
And let's start talking about the spice with Cardinal Draco Alviderd. During your turn, if your world is Dark Knight, it gets plus 2k. If it's Abyssal Dark Knight instead, it gets power plus 5k. And then auto rearguard at the end of the battle this unit attacked. Retire a Shadow Army token. Choose one of your opponent's rearguards and retire it.
Yeah, this card is just good. It's a easy 15k attacker because the whole point of Orphis is you're getting 2 Abyssal Dark Knight. And then on top of that, it is the first of the cards we'll be seeing today that introduces the new dimension to Orphis, where you're taking your expendable Shadow Army tokens, because you make 3 of them for a Counterblast 2, and you're turning them into value. And this one's particularly powerful because it'll be a 30k column, because obviously you're probably going to be boosting this with a Shadow Army token. And then after it attacks, you just pop that Shadow Army token, because you'll make a new one next turn, and you blow up one of your opponent's rear guards. And it's any rear guard. This card's great.
Yes, this playstyle takes it in a new direction, kind of sacrificing things to do effects with it. Cardinal Draco is an instant 4 of. There's not much more to say about it that you haven't already said. It's a 15k attacker, which you want it. You're going to want to play more units, so it's good that this is 15k, so you're not losing out on the power. And then retiring Orphis didn't need. Orphis already had retire, and it just got more retire, which is always good. So this is instant 4 of. Great job. The other triple rare we got is Aurora Battle Princess Perio Turquoise. Continuous rearguard cycle. During your turn, if 2 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, this unit gets power plus 5k. And then auto front row rearguard circle. When your opponent's card imprisoned in your prison is placed on rearguard circle, that unit gets power minus 5,000 until the end of turn.
So this card is really interesting and sweet and is worthy of a triple R slot. The main stuff for prison is going to come later in lower rarity slots with the helping you in prison stuff, but this is like one of 2 cards that are playing with this new dynamic in prison that is very strong, because this is again another easy 15k attacker, and easy 15k attackers are always great, especially in 3 attack decks like both Orphis and Prison are. Plus, like, just this dimension of when your opponent is taking stuff out of prison, is getting minus 5k, is pretty big, because one of the huge weaknesses in prison was decks like Bruce, and that's sort of the one off the top of my head, because Bruce never used its counterblast, so you could imprison stuff out of Bruce all you wanted, and they just counterblast 1 or counterblast 2 in their turn and just undo all your hard work. So now with this card, you know, it adds that dimension of not only did prison in the set get better ways to prison, but now it's not nearly as free for people, especially decks with low resource costs, to get around your prison now as well.
I think one thing I really like about this card is that it's punishing your opponents for freeing cards from prison, and it's an interesting playstyle that kind of maybe doesn't rely on the number of things you imprison and more just getting your opponents to free them from prison, and then taxing them in other ways besides counterblast and soul blast. And I kind of hope that they continue to push prison in this direction in the future. And it's also a 15k attacker, and because prison is kind of on the lower end of the power scale compared to decks like Verena, like Bastion, 15k attackers are always welcome, so this is another easy 4-of in the prison deck.
Yeah, that's actually a great point. This is a really good card right now. 15k has a lot of upside. But yeah, it does open the door for a prison deck that's more of like this kind of grindy taxes control deck that we don't really see in Vanguard at all. But you could definitely do it because negging power in Vanguard can really put you over the edge, especially if you back it up with increased defensive utility.
We'll move on to the double rares. Aurora Battle
Speaking
Princess,
of defensive utility.
Dairy Violet, auto when this unit is put on guard circle. If one or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, Soul Blast one. Choose one of your units and it cannot be hit by a grade 2 or lower unit's attack until the end of that battle.
Hey Sam, you're our resident waifu player.
Yes.
How do you feel about Perfect Guard copies 5 through 8 in your deck?
I mean, I don't know if you end up playing 4 copies of her, but I definitely think in a more defensive prison, this definitely sees slots. There's a lot of grade 2 threats coming into the metagame, like Verena Edgar and Leonard. I mean, if you're running into a meta Bastions, this card is useless.
Yeah, this card's really bad in the Bastion.
Which is why I think, maybe not 4, but I definitely am considering at least 2 in the deck right now. I mean, it's a perfect guard. Perfect guards are just really good, and
yeah, and I think a lot of things people might forget, especially if they don't play Prison, is the Prison card itself, like Soul Charges 3 or something. You have a lot of soul in this deck. This is not a
Don't forget that your Boba Mines also add to soul, so then you're gaining more soul that way. So you have a lot of resources to play with in the prison deck. So dedicating one to this to stop, maybe even like you give 100 million to the grade 2 on an over trigger, and you just shut it down. It's really nice. We move on to Cardinal Noid Thumbarino. That name's so great.
The names in Orfist are fantastic. And the art in Orfist is so good.
Yeah.
Like the best looking SPs out of set 1 were all the Orfist ones.
Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit boosts a Shadow Army token, you may have this unit get power plus 15k until end of turn. If you do, at the end of that battle, retire all of your rearguards in the same column as this unit and draw a card.
So this card is really strong.
Yes.
It makes a 38 card column because it has to be boosting a Shadow Army token. 38's a pretty strong number.
And that's not even on a Persona Ride turn.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about Persona Ride. Yeah, on a Persona Ride turn? Oh my god. Yeah, numbers on this are insane. And even though you do 2 for 1 yourself, and you can't see what I'm doing, but I air quoted that, because the whole point of Orfist, especially in set 2, is this whole sacrifice thing, I think you're not too sad about it. Oh, wait, hold on 1 second. I just realized something. You have to sack it to get the 15k. Never mind, this card is just insane. It makes ridiculous numbers, and then, the cost is you gotta sacrifice your Shadow Army token in this, but it replaces itself by drawing a card, and you're gonna replace those Shadow Army tokens next turn anyway. This card's great.
Yeah, this card's insane, and also another 4-of. Orfist is a real easy upgrade. It's 4 of this, 4 of the triple rare, and you're pretty much good to go. I think the only deck that's easier to upgrade is Bastion. Because if you really have Stratford cash, just buy the order and add it in, and you're good. So, the last double rare is Gluttonic Monster Malnorm. Act, rearguard, once a turn, cost, discard a set order card from your hand and countercharge one.
Brandt just gets all the good counterchargers. Like, I think the only clan with a better countercharger is specifically Barrow Magnus with Sulphurous Engraver, because that card shouldn't be a common for whatever reason.
Yeah, and there's also 2 more counterchargers that we're going to go through in this set alone, and we're leaving out Boba Mine, which, I'm going to be honest, I think Boba Mine's better than this card.
No, Boba Mine's the best countercharger in Overdress right now.
Yes.
It's 0 opportunity cost, and you just get countercharge.
Yeah, and you know, prison won't see this because you're only playing one prison, so you're not going to run this. In Orphis, you're going to want to run Boba Mine because Boba Mine doesn't clog up a rearguard circle that you can replace the Shadow Army tokens later. So while this is good and probably a budget option countercharger because Boba Mines are really expensive right now,
Yeah, they are.
I don't think this will see a lot of play.
Though, it is one to watch for the future, because so far they've shown that it seems like Brandt's thing is going to be these set orders. So, like, any future Brandt deck, you know, this is suddenly, you know, a card to think about again, because countercharging is, like, one of the stronger things in Vanguard, and a good countercharger can totally turn your deck around.
Moving on to select rares and commons that we think are interesting. We have Cardinal Noidoplastia. Auto rearguard circle. When this unit attack boosted by a Shadow Army token hits, draw a card.
This card's boring but effective.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Sweet art though.
Cardinal Fang Marisma. Auto. When this unit is placed on rearguard circle, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck. Choose up to 1 world card from among them, reveal it, put it into your hand, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order.
This card's garbage. The worlds in Orphis are a means to an end. You need to get 2 of them onto the field to turn on all your stuff. There's no reason in the universe you want to play a vanilla 10k that gets you another one.
So the thing about, like, what changes in the Orphis deck in set 2 is that you might want to play more rear guards to play. And there are disastrous cases where you just don't see a second world after your tutor. And that's when this card comes into use. Also, you play worlds as cantrips, and we talk about the retire order. That could be useful. You could grab the new order that can get you another Shadow Army token should you need it. This card is seeing play in the Orphis lists that have come out. It's not like 4 of, but they're playing it at 3. So I don't know, tutoring cards, thinning out your deck just for an on place, that's not the worst effect in the world. Cardinal Prima et Culpa. Auto rearguard circle. When this unit attacks or boosts, if your world is Abyssal Dark Knight, cost retire a Shadow Army token and countercharge 1.
I think this is probably the better Boba Mine budget option countercharger. You know, rants about like Brandt Gate getting so many good counterchargers aside, this actually seems like the perfect budget option because of the insane price of Boba Mines. This is solid.
Yeah, I think one thing to note of this between the double rare countercharger is we're talking about Leonard being the meta and how Leonard attacks whole columns, and a lot of the Orphis cards are going to retire themselves. You think of Thumbarina, and this is like the countercharger I think you want to play in addition to Boba Mine. Oh yeah, well it's still Shadow Army
because
token.
That Shadow Army token is no longer in a column.
Yeah, it's still Shadow Army token, and you're freeing up spaces, which means less targets for Leonard to attack into.
Yeah, especially because you boost the Shadow Army token, and then you retire the Shadow Army token you boosted, and now there's open rearguard circle that can attack your back row.
Yeah, so this is probably the better between the new counterchargers, and Orphis specifically. Whimsical Machine Beast Bug Motor. Act rearguard circle. If 1 or less of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, cost, rest this unit, choose a unit card from your opponent's drop, and imprison it in your prison.
Yeah.
Prison is saved. Run 4 of this card.
I guess I don't have anything to add. Like, you know, this is exactly the kind of stuff prison needed.
Yeah.
Because, oh boy.
Yeah.
When you got played around, that deck was rough.
Yeah, this card, you played this behind your Seraph Snow. If you have 1 card in prison anyway, Seraph Snow gets an extra 10k, so it's 23, and 33 on Persona Red turn, so this is kind of like the perfect card. There's another card we're going to talk about next that goes with it, but this is kind of like your main addition to imprisoning cards.
I hadn't even thought about just sticking it behind your Vanguard, because it's 23k with triple drive if you get going. You don't need a booster for that.
I mean, you probably will get going because you have more ways to imprison cards.
Yep.
On the field, in the graveyards, more ways from hands too.
Yeah.
Prison got I think the biggest buff. We have a grade 2 normal order. The moment of securing Aurora Battle Princess 24 hours coverage.
Hold on a second. You didn't get the inflections right now. It's moment of securing Aurora Battle Princess 24 hours coverage. It's exclamation points, man. You gotta put the oomph on it.
Yeah, I'm not the actor like you are. Play this with a cost Soul Blast 1. If your opponent's hand has 4 or more cards, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and imprisons it in your prison. Then, if 3 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned, in your prison, you choose one of your units and it gets power plus 5k until end of turn. The 5k is nice, but just being able to get more hand prison is what makes this card good.
I will say, the hand prison stuff, pretty strong. Especially against a meta where you have stuff like Bastion, which draws a bunch of cards, and Bruce, which draws a bunch of cards because it loops archery, and Verena, which draws a bunch of cards. But there is a risk in this card because more aggressive decks and lower resource decks do dodge it completely, and then this card is super dead. And also, this card is very dead against your worst matchup because Barrow Magnus spews out Soul Charge and can easily have less than 4 cards in their hand.
Yeah, that's a good point, but I think it's not a 4 of, but
No.
a 2 to 3 I think is a good spot for this card.
Yeah, this card's quite strong. It's just quite strong. Like, the hand in prison attacks the game on a lot of metrics and really helps you out. It's just there are risks with this card, especially depending on the meta, because if in future sets stuff gets outclassed and we have a lot of aggressive decks and people are playing with lower hand size, it's just there's a risk with this card and you should just understand that going.
Cardinal Draco Zelgio. Auto Rearguard Circle. When this unit attacks, Soul Boss 1 and retire Shadow Army token. And until end of that battle, when your opponent would call cards from their hand to guard circle, they must call 2 or more at the same time. If you're looking for an effect that does this is a decent option to have, but I don't think Orphis is gonna need this card.
This card, I think, at the moment, if Orphis gets some sort of crit pressure thing, this card could obviously go up in value. But yes. At the moment, I think this card is just a solid budget option. Brandt is the most expensive clan, and I think it's because of the waifu tax. Like
the
straight
waifu
up.
Tax is real.
The waifu tax is very real. So some budget options are good, and while this card's a little bit awkward, because you'd have to be retiring a Shadow Army token that's already attacked or boosted, because if you're boosting this with the thing you want to retire, that's not going to work. It's gonna be 28-38 on Persona Ride with Guard Restrict. That's pretty easy to turn on. Solid budget option can easily win you some games, especially, if you put triggers on it, especially if you put the over trigger on it, because the Brandt over trigger is so good. Solid card.
Cardinal Fang Istelate. Auto Rearguard Circle. At the end of each turn, if your world is Abyssal Dark Knight, both you and your opponent choose one of your rear guards and retires them. Starting from the fighter of that turn, first to choose the retiring unit.
Oh, yeah. You both retire on each. Dude, this card's bad. This card is super bad, but it's common, it's going to be cheap, and it's so sweet. We never get effects like this in Vanguard. This weird Edict Abyss effect. This card is dumb as shit. But, you have a bunch of free tokens you get to make every turn. So, yeah, put the squeeze on your opponent. Stick this back row behind Vanguard like you're playing OTT against Shadow Paladin back in the early days of V, and just watch your opponent suffer.
Yeah, this card is interesting design, and I think for that reason alone, that's why we're highlighting it. If Orphis just becomes this deck that can spam Shadow Army tokens at will, which I don't think will happen, this card could be an interesting tech. Aurora Battle Princess loaded Azali. Continuous Rearguard Circle. During the battle, this unit boosted. If 2 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, this gets plus 5k. Simple 13k booster Prison needs that. They have a lot of 15k attackers, so now you have 28 column rows.
Great.
So Prison gets the power buff that they needed to keep up a little bit. So this card's good. I heard you like countercharging a Brandt Gate, Gianluca. So I give you Aurora Battle Princess Whopper Prune, which is... Brandt Gate wins on names alone.
Yeah, it really does.
And
that might
set,
be part of why it's so expensive. Everyone's got to own the sweet names.
When this unit is placed on Rearguard Circle, if 5 or more of your opponent's cards are imprisoned in your prison, countercharge 1 or soul charge 3.
See, like, this is the kind of countercharge everyone else gets. The kind of countercharge where you have to jump through an impossible hoop, and then you get to do it. So... I guess it's nice that they get one.
But it gives you options.
Yeah, it does give you options.
Countercharge, soul charge 3. Maybe it gets late and you start running out of soul. Could refill it. It probably gets easier to do as Prison gets more ways to imprison things. We have a grade 2 Blitz order. Explosive. Oh, sorry. Let me yell. Explosive. Melting heart. How was that?
That was good. There you go. You gotta hit them exclamation points. They put them in there for a reason.
Play this with cost Soul Blast 1. Choose one of your opponent's attacking units, and it gets minus 5,000 until end of turn for each of your opponent's cards imprisoned in your prison. If you're playing a more defensive prison deck, you definitely could run this too and kind of reduce troublesome attacks coming at you. Definitely like a 2 of.
I mean, this as Blitz orders go, this one's particularly solid.
Yeah, it's better than the one that got in set 1, which is like Counterblast 2 to get 30k. Counterblasting is something you do a lot in Brandt Gate. So, and also it looked like Among Us. I don't know if that's a pro or con to people, but...
Yeah, no, the cost is definitely a lot more reasonable. Plus, there's a lot of power in doing the negative power thing as opposed to just getting shield.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that can, you know, be extra relevant. And as Prison gets better, as, you know, especially like as you get better and more effective in ridiculous ways to Prison, and maybe you get more stuff like the Triple R that does this like grindier taxes thing, like this card can neg for a whole heck of a lot and really be like a key to your defensive strategy. So it's a cool card, cool to have around.
Finally, we have Eclipsed Moonlight. It's a grade 2 set order. Play this with Counterblast 1. When this unit is placed into the order zone, call a Shadow Army token to Rearguard Circle. Shadow Armies are 15k, and they have boost. And then it's the same as the other worlds. If you have 1 world in your set order, this becomes Dark Knight. 2 or more, your world becomes Abyssal Dark Knight. This card's really sweet. You could do a lot of different things with the Orphis deck now. You could tutor this out and play it on turn 2 and get like a little aggression going with a 15k beater. You could get Howling Moonlight and get an extra card. There's just so many. This opens up more options for the Orphis deck to do. Also, you want to get more Shadow Army tokens since you're retiring them. And with that, we're done with Brandt Gate.
If it wasn't for the fact that like Leonard as the Triple R for Bruce and Verena Edgar as the Triple R for Verena are just so powerful and open up such an incredible part of the thing, I'd say Brandt Gate as a whole would have won this set because the support for both Prison and Orphis was just so perfect. Orphis not getting the exact thing that me and you were talking about, which was some sort of finisher crit pressure, but getting this new and interesting sacrifice attrition-y stuff that like opens up a bunch of doors for the future, and then Prison getting some interesting stuff for the future / now, while also getting like the stuff it really needed in more ways to Prison from places other than the field, just is really gonna take these decks from being sort of like kind of fringe lower tier decks that not a lot of people were really taking to tournaments to being like real threats in the metagame that you're always going to have to be on your toes for.
I mean, we're already starting to see that. You know, I think the last time I checked, Daxander, Orphis, and Prison were at 10% top rate, which is really nice. So these new cards have already improved the decks a lot. You know, Orphis, we knew it was a solid deck. It was just kind of a boring deck to play, and now it's become more interesting to play, which I'm sure Orphis fans are excited about. Prison, the deck struggled to do the thing it wanted to do, and now it has cards to do the thing it wants to do easier, which is really nice. So overall, Brandt Gate, yeah, I think they're like my winner of the set, despite Leonard being like the most oppressive thing. If we're comparing the nations as a whole, Brandt Gate just got like the best buffs to their decks. So with that, thank you for watching. Were there any cards we missed? Let us know in the comments, and subscribe to the channel for more set reviews, deck profiles, and other Cardfight Vanguard Overdress goodness. My name's Sam, that's Gianluca. See you next time.